Hi guys, I am Reza. We are from Group 9.
And also, we are from Jenderal Soedirman University.
We want to present about human resource policies and practices.
Happy watching everyone!
Identifying the right people is the objective of the selection process. This makes it more important than ever to ensure that your organization has an effective method for separating the most qualified candidates from the large number of applicants. The first is how the selection process works. Having decided to apply for a job, applicants go through several stages. The first stage is initial selection. Initial selection devices are the first information applicants submit and are used for preliminary rough cuts to decide whether the applicants meet the basic qualification for a job. For example is application forms. You have no doubt submitted your fair share of applicants. By itself, the information submitted on an application form is not a very useful predictor of performance. However, it can be a good initial screen. Many organizations encourage applicants to apply online. And second is background check. More than 80% of employers conduct references check on applicants at some point in the hiring process. The problem is that rarely do former employers provide useful informants. Letters of recommendation are another form of background check. These also aren't as useful. And finally, some employers check credit history or criminal records. A bank hiring tellers, for example, would probably want to know about an applicant's criminal and credit histories. Applicants who don't meet basic qualifications are rejected. And second stage is substantive selection. If an applicant passes the initial screens, next are substantive selection method. These are the heart of the selection process and include written tests, performance tests, and interviews. The first is written tests. Typical written tests include the first is intelligence or cognitive ability tests. These tests have proven to be particularly good predictors for jobs that include cognitively complex tasks. And the second is personality tests. Despite being inexpensive and simple to administer, however, concern about applicant picking remain because it's fairly easy for applicants to claim they are hardworking, motivated, and dependable when asked in a job application setting. And the third is integrity tests. As ethical problems have increased in organization, integrity tests have gained popularity. This paper and pencil test measure factors such as dependability, carefulness, responsibility, and honesty. And the last is interest inventory. And the second is performance simulation test. What better way to find out whether applicants can do a job successfully than by having them do it? That's precisely the logic of performance simulation tests. Although they are more complicated to develop and administer than written tests, performance simulation tests have higher face validity, which measures whether applicants perceive the measures to be accurate, and their probability has increased. The three best known are, for example, assessment centers and situational judgment tests. And the last is interviews. Of all the selection devices organizations around the globe use to differentiate candidates, the interviews remain the most common. It also tends to have a disproportionate amount of influence. Over-reliance on interviews is problematic because extensive evidence shows that impression management techniques like self-promotion have a strong effect on interview preferences even when unrelated to the job. It can be biased toward those who interview well. To reduce such bias and improve the validity of interviews, managers should adopt a standardized set of questions, a uniform method of recording information, and standardized rating of applicants' qualification. Applicants who meet basic qualification but are less qualified than others are rejected. The last stage is contingent selection. If applicants pass the subservice selection method, they are ready to be hired contingent on a final check. One common contingent method is a drug test. Drug testing is controversial. Many applicants think testing without reasonable suspicion is impressive or unfair and say they should be tested on job performance factors, not lifestyle choices that may not be relevant. Employers might counter that drug use and abuse are extremely costly, not just in financial terms, but also in terms of people's safety. Applicants who are among those qualified but who fail contingent selection, such as positive drug tests, unfavorable background check, are rejected.
Next is types of training. Training can include everything from teaching employees basic already skills to conducting advanced courses in executive leadership. So there are 4 general skills categories. First is basic skills. One survey of more than 400 human resources professionals found that 40% of employers believe high school graduates lack basic skills in reading comprehensions, writing, and math. So when the work has become more sophisticated, the need for these basic skills has grown significantly, leading to a gap between employer demands for skills and the available skills in the workforce. This challenge is a worldwide problem, from the most developed countries to the less. And the second is technical skills. Most training is directed at upgrading and improving an employee's technical skills. Increasingly important for 2 reasons. First is new technology, and the second is new structural designs in the organizations. As organizations flatten their structures, expand the use of teams, and break down traditional departmental barriers, employees need mastery of a wider variety of tasks and increased knowledge of how their organizations operate. And the third is problem-solving skills. Problem-solving training for managers and other employees include activities to sharpen their logic, reasoning, and problem-defining skills, as well as their abilities to assess causations, develop and analyze alternatives, and select solutions. And the fourth is interpersonal skills. Almost all employees belong to work in unit, and these skills include how to be a better listener, how to communicate ideas more clearly, and how to be a more effective team player. And the fifth is civility training. Managers must pay attention to such as problem of incivility, bullying, and abusive supervisions in organizations, because researchers have shown that these forms of negative behavior can decrease satisfaction, reduce job performance, increase perceptions of unfair treatment, increase depressions, and lead to psychological withdrawal from the workplace. So, how to minimize it? The answer is by training specifically targeted to building civility by having directed conversations about it and supporting the reductions of incivility on an ongoing process. And the sixth is ethics training. Supporters of ethics training say values can be learned after early childhood. Ethics training helps employees recognize ethical dilemmas and become more aware of the ethical issues underlying their actions. Individuals who have greater exposure to organizational ethics codes and ethics training do tend to be more satisfied and perceive their organizations as more socially responsible. So, ethics training does have some positive effects. And the next is training methods. Training informal training means that planning in advance and having structured format. But for informal training mean unstructured, unplanned, and easily adapted to situations and individuals for teaching skills and keeping employees current. So on-the-job training methods include job rotations, apprenticeships, and understudy assignments. But because they often disrupt the workplace, organizations also invest in off-the-job training. The fastest growing training medium is probably e-training. E-training increases flexibility because organizations can deliver materials anywhere, anytime, and it also seems fast and efficient. On the other hand, it's expensive to design self-paced online materials, and employees miss the social interactions of a classroom. And the next is evaluating effectiveness. The effectiveness of a training program can refer to the level of student satisfaction, the amount of students learn, the extent to which they transfer the material from training to their jobs, or the financial return on investment in training. And the success of training also depends on first, individual, second, personality, and the third is climate. And the next is performance evaluations. What is performance? So there are three major types of behavior that constitute performance at work. So first is task performance. It's the combinations of effectiveness and efficiency at doing your core job task. And the second is citizenship. This is the actions that contribute to the psychological environment of the organizations, such as helping others when not required. And the third is counterproductivity. This is the actions that actively damage the organizations, including stealing, behaving aggressively toward co-workers, or being late or absent. And the next is purposes of performance evaluations. First is help management make general human resource decisions about promotions, transfers, and terminations. And the second is identify training and development needs. And the third is pinpoint employee skills and competencies. And the fourth is provide feedback to employees. And the fifth is basis for reward allocations, including merit pay increase. So, what do we evaluate? First is individual task outcome. So management should evaluate an employee's task on outcomes such as quantity produced, scrap generated, and cost per unit of productions. And the second is behaviors. If it is hard to identify the contributions of each group member, management will often evaluate the employee's behavior. And the third is traits. The organizations still use traits to assess job performance.
We should do the evaluating. By tradition, the task has fallen to managers because they are held responsible for their employees' performance. With many of today, organizations using self-managed teams, telecommuting, and other organizing devices that distinguish from employees, the immediate superior may not be the most reliable judge of an employee's performance. In most situations, in fact, it is highly advisable to use multiple sources of ratings. Any individual performance rating may say as much about the rater as about the person being evaluated. By averaging across raters, we can obtain a more reliable, unbiased, and accurate performance evaluation. Next is 360-degree evaluation. Another popular approach to performance evaluation is 360-degree evaluation. This provides performance feedback from the employee's full circle of daily contacts, from mailroom workers to customer, to boss to peer. Methods of performance evaluation. How do we evaluate an employee's performance? And what are the specific techniques for the evaluation? First is written essays. Probably the simplest method is to write narrative describing an employee's strength, weakness, past performance, potential, and suggestion for improvement. The written essays requires no complex form or extensive training to complete. And next, critical incidents. Critical incidents focus the evaluator attention of the difference between executing job effectively and executing it ineffectively. The appraiser describes what the employee did was especially or effective or ineffective in the situation, citing only specific behavior. Graphic rating scale. An evaluation method in which the evaluator rates performance factor on incremental scale. The evaluator goes through the set of performance factors such as quantity and quality of work, depth knowledge, cooperation, attendance, and initiative, and rates or on incremental scales. Behavior anchor rating scales, or we can say bars. Scales that combine major elements from the critical incidents and graphic rating scale approach. The appraiser rates the employees based on items along the continuum. But the points are examples of actual behavior on the given job rather than the general description or trait. Force comparison. Force comparison evaluates one individual performance against the performance of another or other. It is relative rather than an absolute measuring device. The two most popular comparisons are group order ranking and individual ranking. Suggestion for improving performance evaluation. The performance evaluation process is a potential minefield. Evaluator can unconsciously inflate evaluation or positive leniency, understate performance of negative leniency, or allow assessment one characteristic to unduly influence the assessment of other, or the halo error. Although no protection guarantee accurate performance evaluation, the following suggestion can make process more objective and fair. Use multiple evaluators. As the number of evaluators increase, probability of attaining more accurate information increase, as does the likelihood that the employee will accept the feedback as valid. Evaluate selectively. To increase agreement among them, appraiser should evaluate only where they have some expertise. They should thus be as close as possible in organizational level to the individual being evaluated. Train evaluator. If you can find good evaluator, make them training evaluator, can produce more accurate raters. Most writer training courses emphasize changing the writer's frame of reference by teaching them what to look for. So everyone in the organization defines good performance in the same way. Provide employee with due process. The concept of due process can be applied appraisal to increase the perception that employees are being treated fairly. Three features characterize due process system. Individuals are provided with adequate notice of what is expected of them. Second, all evidence relevant to a proposed violation is aired and fair hearing so the individual effect can respond. The third, or the last, the final decision is based on the evidence and free of bias.
And the next is providing performance feedback. Few activities are more unpleasant for many managers than providing performance feedback to employees. In fact, unless pressured by organizational policies and controls, managers are likely to ignore this responsibility. Why? First, even though almost every employee could stand to improve in some areas, managers fear confrontations when presenting negative feedback. Second, many employees do tend to become defensive when their weaknesses are pointed out, instead of accepting the feedback as constructive and a basis for improving performance. Some criticize the managers or redirect blame to someone else. Finally, employees tend to have an involved assessment of their own performance. The solution to the problem is not to ignore it, but to train managers to conduct constructive feedback sessions. An effective review in which the employees perceive the appraisal as fine, the manager as sincere, and the climate as constructive can leave the employees feeling upbeat, informed about areas needing improvement, and determined to correct them. In addition, the performance review should be a counseling activity more than a judgment process, best accomplished by allowing it to evolve from the employee's own self-evaluation. The last is international variations in performance appraisals. Let's examine performance evaluations globally in the context of four cultures dimensions: individualism or collectivism, a person's relationship to the environment, time orientations, and focus of responsibility. Individual-oriented cultures such as the United States emphasize formal performance evaluation systems more than informal systems. They advocate written evaluation performance at regular intervals, the results of which managers share with employees and use in the determinations of rewards. On the other hand, the collectivist cultures that dominate Asia and much of Latin America are characterized by more informal systems, downplaying formal feedback and disconnecting rewards allocation from performance ratings. Some of these differences might be narrowing. However, in Korea, Singapore, and even Japan, the use of performance evaluation has increased dramatically in the past decade, though not always smoothly or without controversy. One recent study focused on the banking industry found significant differences across countries in performance appraisals practice. Formal performance appraisals were used more frequently in countries that were high in assertiveness, high in uncertainty avoidance, and low in group collectivism. On the other hand, in high uncertainty avoidance cultures, performance appraisals were also used more frequently for communications and development purposes. Another study found that individuals who were high in power distance and high in collectivisms tend to give more lenient performance appraisals. And the last topic is about managing work-life conflicts in organizations. Work-life conflicts grabbed management's attention in the 1980s, largely as a result of the increased entry into the workforce of women with dependent children. In response, most major organizations took action to make their workplace more family-friendly. They introduced on-site childcare, summer day camps, flex time, job sharing, leave for school functions, telecommuting, and part-time employment. Organizations also modifying their workplace with scheduling options and benefits to accommodate the varied needs of a diverse workforce. Exhibit 17.4 lists some initiatives to help employees reduce work-life conflicts. First, in category time-based strategies, some initiatives to help employees reduce work-life conflicts, among them namely flex time, job sharing, leave for new parents, transportation, telecommuting, and paid time off. Second, in category information-based strategies, some initiatives to help employees reduce work-life conflicts, among them namely work-life supports, relocation assistance, elder care resources, and counseling services. Third, in category money-based strategies, some initiatives to help employees reduce work-life conflicts, among them namely insurance subsidies, flexible benefits, adoption assistance, discount for childcare tuitions, direct financial assistance, domestic partner benefits, and scholarships, tuition reimbursement. Fourth, in category direct service, some initiatives to help employees reduce work-life conflicts, among them namely on-site childcare, fitness center, summer childcare, on-site convenience, concierge service, free or discount company programs. And the last is, in category culture change strategies, some initiatives to help employees reduce work-life conflicts, among them namely establishing work-life balance cultures, training managers to help employees deal with work-life conflicts, time management tied to employee satisfactions, focus on employees' actual performance, not face time. That's some list of initiatives to help employees reduce work-life conflicts in organizations. That's the video presentations from our group.
Hope it will give advantage for you.
And increase your knowledge.
And we hope you enjoy it. Thank you!